All right, let's start. This is just going to be a quick space where I'm going to read 2.5 Problems of Governance or On Leveling Governance. I put the text up in the nest. I don't think we'll have any discussion on this one, and maybe no one will even join. It's such a short section. I just did it spur of the moment here. So let me just start reading. As usual, I'm going to read the section, then come back and read it slowly while giving my own thoughts on it. But again, this is a very, very short section. 2.5 Problems of Governance. It is against this background we have the story of Yao asking Shun, I want to launch a formal attack against Zong, Kuai, and Xu Ao. But facing south to rule all the world, I still don't feel well at ease. What is the reason behind this? Shun replied, Well, these three are survivors out in the sticks, and now you don't feel at ease. Why should that be? In olden times, 10 suns rose together, and all kinds of creatures were bathing in blazing sunlight. How much more should this be the case with virtue of a higher order than the sun? And that's 2.5. So essentially we have this one short conversation between Yao and Shun, these not mythological necessarily, but ancient pre-dynastic sage kings. Usually they get coupled together as Yao, Shun, and Yu. It says it is against this background. So I guess that's what we just read in 2.4. This stuff about being a treasure house from heaven, or being, possessing this wisdom that you can comment on everything, but it doesn't get used up. So it is against this background we have the story of Yao asking Xuan. So I suppose it's against the background of, do we have a sage, or what should be the effect of the sage? I want to launch a formal attack against Zong, Kuai, and Xu Ao. Okay, so Yao again is the reigning monarch at that time, I suppose, and he wants to attack these three groups. Apparently, they're out in the sticks, as we learn. So these barbarian tribes, I suppose, or foreign tribes, outside the cap and girdle states, or whatever it's called at the time of Yao. And he says, but facing south to rule all the world, I still don't feel well at ease. All right, so he's nervous. Great. What is the reason? Xuan replied, these three, so the Zong, Kuai, and Xu Ao, are survivors out in the sticks. Yep. And now you don't feel at ease. Right, that's what he said. Why should that be? In olden times, 10 suns rose together, and all kinds of creatures were bathing in blazing sunlight. How much more should this be the case with virtue of a higher order than the sun? Yeah, all right. It's obviously referencing the story of Ho Yi, or whoever, the archer that shoots down the 9 suns. So, again, this book doesn't even give any notes about the myth. I guess it's just so popular that it assumes everyone knows. Again, this is the Harbs, Mayer, and Williams inner chapters of the ZhuangZi book. Yeah, it doesn't give any notes about this mythology, but I guess it's just such a popular tale that everyone already knows about it. And I know my kids were recently learning about it in primary school, so yeah, I guess I didn't feel the need to give the notes, but essentially there were 10 suns, and they were rising at the same time, and I guess having 10 suns up in the air caused everyone to be super hot or uncomfortable, or was going to kill everyone. And so they looked to Ho Yi, who is an archer, and he shot down 9 of the suns. And that's why we only have 1 sun today. Fantastic. That's why the weather is a lot more comfortable these days. So Ho Yi defeated global warming. But this section 2.5 actually doesn't talk about the 10 suns being destroyed. You know what? It just says in olden times 10 suns rose together. Yeah, that's true. There were 10 suns up in the air. And yes, everyone was in blazing sunlight. And I kind of get the analogy, okay, if Yao was really a treasure house from heaven or a sage king or whatever, presumably his rule or authority or majesty, which would be universal or omnipresent. Just like when there were 10 suns in the air, they were blazing on everything. And I suppose Yao is uneasy because he's going to go attack these foreign barbarians or people who reject his rule, I suppose, or are just independent from him. And why wouldn't you feel ill at ease? Because if the presumption is, if you are a sage king, therefore your sagely rule or wisdom or authority extends everywhere, why are there 3 people outside of your domain? These 3 peoples should be within your domain, just like the whole earth was feeling the effects of the 10 suns. So the whole political world should feel the effects of Yao's rule or his kingship. So yeah, I kind of get that. You feel ill at ease because you're having to bring warfare, because had you been so awesome, you would not need to perform any warfare, because you'd be like the 10 suns and everything would just be under your blazing sunlight. They'd be under your rule just per se by the nature of your rule being so sagely, I suppose. They'd kneel and obey you. But, it's kind of funny because the 2.5 ends. Does 2.6 talk about this? No. Okay. So 2.5, well, at least not. I don't know if it'll be I haven't gone and read 2.6 today, so I don't know if it's going to say something similar, but it's not referencing that myth at the first few lines. So if we have a story where the 10 suns are actually going to destroy the earth, does that mean the analogy... what if we continue the analogy and we say that Yao's rule will... cause anarchy or destroy the political order? Because ultimately, yeah, there were 10 suns and everything was in sunlight and it was all burning hot and global warming was, I suppose, out of control. But that was a negative thing. It had to be destroyed for the right order to come about and for everyone to live. And so what does that say about Yao or Shun's? Shun is giving the advice here. What does it say about his advice that the Yao should have been like the 10 suns? Because if Yao was like the 10 suns, and isn't presumably the analogy that Yao should be shut down and we should split people apart again? Or at least end the universal rule or order of a sage king? Because maybe it's harmful, just like the 10 suns up together is harmful, and the suns will burn everyone and the sage king will oppress everyone, I suppose. Again, that's reading a lot into this text, but I bet if we thought more about it and we cross-referenced it with earlier parts of this book, chapter 2, and other parts of the book, I wonder if the idea would be to not have a universal sage king who, I guess, puts blazing sunlight on everyone or enforces his moralistic rule on everyone. Because you also have to wonder what ZhuangZi thinks of Yao Xuan and Yu. I suppose I'd have to go look into that as well. Because Yao Xuan and Yu are kind of held up as these sage kings by by multiple different schools of thought. But I wonder if ZhuangZi would want to cut them down to size a little like he does with Confucius. And of course we saw in the previous 2.4 chapter the talk of not quibbling about the sage kings or the people of antiquity. Here we go. The sage discusses but does not enter into political debate on the generations of the annals and the aspirations of the early kings. The sage debates but does not quibble on. So there you go. So I wonder if there's some deeper meaning there that the reader would get if they knew the myth, and the book doesn't tell them the myth, but I guess it's popular enough. And if we are to read more into it, we get the initial reading of, okay, you're feeling anxious because there are people that don't obey you, and as you know, when the 10 suns were in the sky, everything was in the blazing sunlight. If you had a similarly great sagacity, I suppose, everyone would already be under your rule or listening to you or following you. But they're not, so you're ill at ease. That feeling is coming from your own insufficiency. But at the same time, if we go a little further, well, the 10 suns ruling everything was actually a bad thing because it was going to burn the whole world up. So it had to be shattered and only one remain. And I suppose now there are parts of the world that aren't bathed in blazing sunlight. But if the Yao Xuan is ill at ease because I suppose he, in conquering those 3 people, will become like the 10 blazing suns, right? Because then he'd conquer all the barbarians. So then he'd be like he was bathing the whole world in sunlight, in which case he would have achieved a great evil rather than an achievement in battle. You know, there's a few ways you can take it. That's interesting. Well, anyway, it's a very short section. I just wanted to read it quickly today. If you have any comments on the myth of being referenced here, the 10 sons, and how that relates to a ruler thinking about conquering all his neighbors, or at least 3 of them, drop it below, I suppose, or just reply to the tweet. I'll probably end it there. But yeah, there's a few directions you can take that. That's interesting. And I wonder as well, what ZhuangZi, I wonder if I should just go search the text to see if he ever talks about Hou Yi. It's a popular figure, and he's definitely an ancient figure. Like Hou Yi is mentioned in ancient texts that predate ZhuangZi, so it's not like I'm using a later myth or a mythological character at least to, I suppose, interpret someone who wouldn't have known about Hou Yi. So yeah, that's an interesting project. If anyone wants to do that, or maybe I'll do that someday. Just try and figure out what exactly ZhuangZi thought of Hou Yi, if there's any clues in here. And maybe look carefully at the accounts that are preserved and contemporary to the writing of this text, and see what exactly sort of character he has. And I guess any tales regarding the 10 sons as well, and see if they clue one in on how one ought to interpret this section, because honestly, I can go a number of directions with the analogy between 10 being reduced to 1, and a partial ruler wanting to become a universal ruler like the 10 sons, but then either not yet being there and therefore ill at ease, or ill at ease because to become that would be itself a negative, just like the 10 sons were negative. In which case he should be happy with what he already has, right? He shouldn't want a formal attack against these 3 neighbors that don't regard him with respect or don't want anything to do with him, because to do so would be like to become the 10 sons, whereas he should be happy being the 1 son, limited and not bathing everything in his will, which also seems Taoist, but because why desire more than you ought to have, I suppose, and why try to make others conform to your nature when they have a nature of their own? But anyway, that's it for today. 2.5 done. And next time I will, I probably won't pre-announce the space, but it looks like it's 1, 2, 3 pages for 2.6. Then we got a little longer for 2.7. 2.8 is another short one. 2.9, again, very short. 2.10, again, very short. All right, so we got 2 very short sections and 1, 2, yeah, well, I guess a 3-page one is on too. 3 fairly long ones. All right, perfect. Thank you, and until next time.